Welcome to the Deep Dive, giving you the knowledge you need to be truly well-informed.
Today we're tackling something that, well, it might be one of the most significant historical distinctions for anyone trying to understand the Bible or ancient history.
We're talking about the difference between Israelites and Jews.
Exactly. It's a confusion that has spanned millennia, and you see it everywhere. Most people today just assume the terms Israelite and Jew are, interchangeable.
But they're not.
Not at all. And if you miss this one distinction, honestly, hundreds of prophecies and the entire political landscape of the ancient world just don't make sense.
Okay, so let's try to frame this. The sources offer a really clear analogy to get us started.
It's a great one.
All Jews are Israelites, but, and this is the critical part, not all Israelites are Jews.
That's it. It's like saying all Californians are Americans, but you'd never say all Americans are Californians. It just doesn't work.
So the Jewish people are one branch, a very specific and important branch of a much larger family tree.
The Israelite tree, yes. Once you see that, the ancient world suddenly becomes a lot more coherent.
So let's go back, way back. To get this right, we have to start at the beginning of the family line. Who are the Hebrews?
Right, the very beginning. The term Hebrew comes from an ancient patriarch named Eber, or sometimes Heber.
Abraham was a descendant of Eber, so he was a Hebrew.
He was a Hebrew. That's the oldest and broadest term for that line of people.
So, and this is a big point, Abraham was a Hebrew, but he could not have been a Jew.
Absolutely not. And you hear that all the time, even in history books. Calling Abraham or Isaac or Jacob a Jew is a huge anachronism.
It's like calling Plato an Italian.
Exactly. The name didn't exist yet. The tribe of Judah, where the name Jew comes from, wasn't even born. The word Jew doesn't show up in the records for something like 1,500 years after Abraham.
Wow. Okay, so that really sets the timeline. So how do we get from Hebrew to the national identity, Israelite?
That happens with Jacob. You have Abraham, who has Isaac, and Isaac has Jacob. And Jacob, famously, wrestles with a divine being and has his name changed to Israel.
And his 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel.
Right, and the nation that grows from them is called Israel, and the people are Israelites. That name covers all 12 tribes, the whole family.
This family eventually became a kingdom, a united monarchy under figures like David and Solomon in the 10th century BC. But that unity, it didn't last, did it?
It shattered completely. Yeah. After King Solomon died around 975 BC, the nation split into two separate and frankly often hostile kingdoms.
And the sources are pretty emphatic that this wasn't just a political disagreement.
No, it was framed as a divine judgment on Solomon for his idolatry. The prophet Jeremiah even calls them the two families that God had chosen, two separate families.
Okay, so let's break down these two new nations. Let's start with the northern kingdom.
The north was the powerhouse. It was made up of 10 of the 12 tribes, the vast majority of people.
And they kept the original name.
They did. They were called the Kingdom of Israel, or the House of Israel.
And their capital.
It moved around at first, but they eventually settled in a new city built by King Omri called Samaria.
Samaria, okay.
And this is really important for later prophetically. The entire northern kingdom of Israel is often just called by the name of its most prominent tribe, which was Ephraim.
Ephraim, one of Joseph's sons.
Yes. So you'll see Israel, Samaria, and Ephraim used almost interchangeably for that northern nation.
Okay, but hold on. If the north was bigger, more prosperous, and had the original name Israel, how did the smaller southern kingdom manage to hold on to Jerusalem and the temple?
That's the key to their identities. The southern kingdom was mainly just two tribes, Judah and Benjamin. And their capital was, of course, Jerusalem.
But the real split was religious right from the start.
Instantly. The north's first king, Jeroboam, was afraid his people would go to Jerusalem to worship and maybe switch their allegiance back.
So he set up his own religion.
He set up 2 golden calves for them to worship. And this act of idolatry caused a huge migration.
Who migrated?
The priestly tribe of Levi. Their whole lives revolved around the temple in Jerusalem. So they and other faithful people from the northern tribes abandoned their homes and fled south to join Judah.
So the south, the house of Judah, though much smaller, suddenly had Jerusalem, the temple, and the official priesthood. It became the religious center.
That's the setup. And this is where the modern confusion begins, because the word Jew is just a shortened later version of the name Judah.
So only people from that southern kingdom, the house of Judah, could ever be accurately called Jews.
Correct. After they were taken captive to Babylon and later returned, the land was known as Judea. The people of Judah became known as Jews.
Now, this brings us to what the sources present as the scalpel, well, the smoking gun. The moment that just completely shatters the idea that Israelite and Jew mean the same thing.
It's the first time the word Jew ever appears in the Bible, and the context is war.
Civil war.
A brutal one. We're in the book of 2 Kings around 735 BC.
And what's happening?
You have Pekah, the king of Israel, the northern 10 tribes in Samaria, making an alliance with the king of Syria.
And who are they planning to attack?
They're marching on Jerusalem to destroy Ahaz, the king of Judah.
The king of Israel is attacking the king of Judah.
And the text says, the Syrian king drove the Jews from Elath. The sources highlight the shock of it. The king of Israel was at war against the Jews. The king of the Jews was so terrified, he had to call on the Assyrian Empire to save him from his Israelite brothers in the north.
Wow. Okay, so if Israel and the Jews were the same people, that whole passage is just nonsense.
Complete gibberish.
Yeah.
It would be like reading that England allied with France to attack England.
But if you see them as two separate rival nations, the House of Israel versus the House of Judah, it makes perfect, if tragic, sense.
It does. And this separation defined their fates. They even went into captivity separately.
The northern kingdom, Israel, was conquered first.
Yes, the House of Israel, those 10 tribes, were conquered by the Assyrians around 721 BC. And this is vital. The sources stress that they never returned as a group.
Never.
They were scattered. The historian Josephus, writing centuries later, called them an immense multitude, lost beyond the Euphrates River.
So they were known as the Lost 10 Tribes.
Exactly. And they were never, ever called Jews in Scripture. They were gone. Yeah. Then, 173 years later...
the southern kingdom, Judah, had its turn.
Right. Judah was conquered by the Babylonians. But, and this is the key difference, a portion of them did return after 70 years of exile.
And those were the people who became known as the Jews.
The people of Judah who returned to Judea.
Yes. The prophets who wrote about all this, they were incredibly precise with their language, weren't they?
Meticulous. This wasn't poetry. When they said Israel, they meant the northern kingdom. When they said Judah, they meant the southern.
So you see phrases like backsliding Israel. That label is never applied to Judah. Then you see treacherous Judah, which is never applied to Israel.
The capitals became shorthand. Right. When a prophet says Samaria is in trouble, he means the northern 10 tribes. When he says Jerusalem is in trouble, he means Judah. They are specific political entities.
This brings us to the theological core of the argument. The promises made to their common ancestor, Jacob, were actually split between these two houses.
This is where it all comes together. The division of the birthright and the scepter promises.
Okay, define those for us. What's the scepter?
The scepter promise was about the royal line, the guarantee of kings, of a dynasty, and ultimately the lineage of the Messiah. It was about governance and law.
And the birthright?
The birthright was about national greatness. The double portion of inheritance, vast territory, and crucially, the promise of becoming an immense population, a multitude of nations.
So which house got which promise?
The scepter, the royal line, was given to Judah, the southern kingdom. That's why the kings came from David's line.
And the birthright, with its promise of becoming a huge multitude of nations.
That went to Joseph, and specifically to his son Ephraim, who, as we said, was the dominant tribe of the northern kingdom of Israel.
So let me get this straight. The Jews from the house of Judah held the scepter promise, the royal messianic line.
Correct.
But the Israelites of the house of Israel, or Ephraim, held the birthright promise to become a massive company of nations scattered across the world.
That is the critical distinction.
Yeah.
The sources argue you cannot apply the birthright promises of national multiplicity to the Jews of Judah, who were prophesied to be and returned as a small remnant.
If you try to apply all the promises to one group, the prophecies seem to fail.
They do. It creates a contradiction. But when you see two houses with two different destinies, it all lines up.
It's really incredible how this one distinction just reframes centuries of history and prophecy.
And it's not some new theory. As we mentioned, Jewish historians like Josephus were clear that the 10 tribes were a separate, immense multitude that had not been reincorporated with the Jews who returned from Babylon. They were still considered separate.
So this massive population, the northern kingdom, they didn't just vanish, they were scattered, absorbed into the world. But their prophetic identity as the house of Israel remained distinct from the house of Judah, the Jews.
Exactly. And that brings us to the final, really provocative thought from the sources, which connects this ancient past to a prophetic future.
You were talking about the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel.
Ezekiel 37, the vision of the two sticks. One stick is for Judah, the Jews. The other stick is for Joseph, or Ephraim, which is the house of Israel.
And what does the prophecy say will happen to these two separate sticks?
It says that at some point in the future, God will take both of them and join them into one stick. They will become one nation again under one king in their own land.
And that great reunion, it hasn't happened yet.
It has not. Which means that until that day comes, the two houses, Israel and Judah, must still be separate and distinct entities in the world today.
Which leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it?
It's the ultimate question the sources pose for you to think about. If that distinction is still prophetically active, and the Jews represent the house of Judah, then who are the descendants of that immense multitude of the unreturned northern kingdom today who inherited that promise of becoming a multitude of nations?